Yo, what is going on, everyone? Kyle Style TV back here with another beta video guide. Today we're taking a look at the Ruby life pools on heroic difficulty. So for this first pool, it's quite big. I was testing things out and pulled pretty large here, but I'm going to go over the different mobs in here. So the large one in here is the Primal Jokernauts. These do a excavating blast, which targets a person and puts a big circle on it. You can see it there on the screen up above, as well as a crushing smash, which just goes on the tank for a large burst of damage. Also in these pools are the Flash Frost Chillweavers. These just cast Ice Bolt and then will occasionally put an Ice Shield on one of the other mobs that's in the group. There's also Whelps in here. These spawn when you touch any of the eggs, and sometimes they're just up next to the Chillweavers. But these cast Infused Claws every once in a while, which will then put a debuff on whoever they hit, which at 5 stacks will cause them to freeze, and on the other stacks it just takes a little bit of damage. Also in here are the Primal Terra Sentries. These pick a random player and shoot a stone missile at them at their location, and when it lands it does a small burst of AoE. So in the next pack, we've got a couple more of the Chillweavers, but what we mainly have in here is the Defier Dragar. This does a channel which is called Flurry, which is, if you played during Shadowlands, a similar ability that you've probably seen in Theater of Pain. Basically, it's just a large couple attacks that go on the tank, and basically you just want to get away from the mob when it's casting this, or use a large defensive cooldown. But if you move away from it, it will kind of follow you, but it won't hit you like it's a melee range ability, so you can definitely just kite away from it. And then it'll also cast Blazing Rush at a ranged target. When this happens, it will charge to that player and hit anyone in between and knock them back. So make sure you watch out for that. As we make our way to the next boss, it's a great time to remember to like and subscribe for more beta coverage and everything having to do with Brewmaster as we go forward with the Dragonflight beta. Just a quick note before we start Melidrusa, I have slowed down the footage for each of the bosses so that we can get a better view at what each boss does. All of Meli's abilities, except the tank hit, apply Primal Chill. This is a stacking debuff that does damage, and at 5 stacks will freeze the target for 3 seconds and do medium damage over those 3 seconds. The group should avoid letting this get to 5 stacks on anyone, and healers, you can dispel this with a magic dispel. The first main ability the group needs to worry about is Chillstorm. This targets a ranged player and puts a circle around them. When she finishes the cast, the storm will spawn where the circle is and deal medium damage every second to anyone who's inside of it, as well as applying Primal Chill stacks every second. While the storm is up, a Hail Bomb will target a random player and deal damage to anyone near the explosion, as well as add 2 stacks of Primal Chill to any targets nearby. When the storm ends, Hail Bombs will rain down all over the entire boss room, so make sure to avoid these. The next ability she does is Awaken Whelps. This causes several infused whelp eggs to break and spawn whelplings. The whelplings are just like the trash from before the boss. They cast Cold Cause, which then applies stacks of Primal Chill to the first target that hit. Healers, make sure to watch the tank and be ready to dispel at 3+ stacks when these are out to avoid having them be frozen. Ice Blast is an ability that the Dungeon Journal lists, but we never saw the boss cast after 2 runs of the dungeon. It's possible that the animation of her firing frostbolts at the whelp eggs at the end of Awaken Whelps is this ability. Until we know more, it's best not to stand in front of the eggs she targets at the end of the cast, just in case this is the ability, as it does large damage. It's also possible that this is just an ability that, we won't see until we do Mythic Plus and the boss lasts longer, so if this is a cast on its own, just make sure you're not in front of the tank when it's going off. After the boss is finished, you'll jump on the drakes that appear and fly up to the next area. For the next area, you'll have to clear 4 trash packs that are in the room so that you can activate the second boss. Each of these trash packs is basically the same. They consist of little elementals that just basically melee the tank. There are some casters in there, which are Cinder Weavers, which just cast Cinderbolt. You'll interrupt them or knock them back to kind of get them into the group. There's also Primal Flame Dancers, which do a Blaze of Glory cast on death, which will cause lots of those small little circles that you just saw on the screen when they die. Just avoid those. They also cast another ability called Flame Dance. It looks like it's just buffing them, but I couldn't actually tell with the base UI, so watch out for those. The other ability and mob that's in here is this large elemental, the Blazebound Destroyer. It's very similar to a mob that you're going to see during the next boss, so it's kind of important to take a look at the abilities it does now. So the first thing it has is Inferno. This is just a mass AoE burst that it does to the entire group that you can't really avoid. It just goes off, so healers be ready to heal it. The second thing that it casts is Living Bomb. This puts a Living Bomb circle on a player, which does a little bit of damage, and then when it expires, it knocks them and anyone else who's in the circle up into the air and does a large burst of damage. So if this goes on you and you're a ranged or a healer or a melee, just move out of the group so that people don't get knocked up. The last thing it does is it casts Burnout when it's about to die. This is that large circle that you've been seeing on the ground that's around it. Basically, when it's about to die, get out of the circle, because if you're still in it when the circle expires, it'll explode and do large damage. So, you'll deal with these mobs 3 times, and then, like I said, after the 4th time, you'll be back at the boss, and then you'll be ready to face off with the boss. As we make our way to the second boss, this would be a perfect time to subscribe, like the video, ring the bell. That way you get notified every time that I post a new video, whether it's Brewmaster or Dragonflight Beta related. Alright, so our second boss here is Kokia Blazehoof. Probably mispronouncing that. But basically this boss, again, once you take out the 4 trash packs, you'll come back around the circle and she'll be active. The first ability that she does is Ritual of Blaze Binding. This puts a big orange circle on the ground, and after her cast is finished, it's going to do a little AoE explosion to anyone in it, and it's going to spawn one of our Blaze-bound firestorms that we saw during the trash. Now, this has very similar abilities to what we saw on the other trash. It will cast Inferno, which does AoE damage to everyone, plus a little bit of damage over time. It also, instead of casting Living Bomb, this time it's going to cast Roaring Blaze. This is a ability that it casts. You want to interrupt it. If it goes off, it does large damage to all targets. And then just like the other one, when it's about to die, it's going to cast Burnout, putting a big circle around it. Again, you just want to get out of that circle because when it goes off, it will explode, dealing damage. The next ability that it casts is Molten Boulder. This is just basically a meteor that comes down from the boss towards a player, so it picks a player. You want to move out of this if it targets you, because it's going to go in a straight line from the boss through you and out the back. So it will deal damage to anyone that it hits and knock them back, stunning them for 3 seconds. And then when it finishes, after 40 yards, there is another AoE circle. So if you're standing and it didn't go down the stairs like it just did in the last one, you're going to see that it actually explodes at the end of its cast, which you can see right now on the screen. The other ability it does is Searing Blows. This is just an ability on the tank. This is a good time to use an active mitigation. It does 4 hits and then applies a debuff, so definitely make sure that you use mitigation for that ability, but you don't have to worry about that if you aren't a tank. Alright, so up next we got a little change from the alpha, as now there is trash in between the second and third boss. So, trash to look out on here. We've got the Tempest Channeler. This is actually a main kill target that you want to target. It does an interruptible Thunderbolt that you can interrupt to stack, but then it's also going to cast Lightning Storm, which does a mass 40-yard AoE, so you want to make sure that you're avoiding those. Also in the groups, you've got Stormtroopers, which do a Thunderclap, which just do a little bit of AoE damage around the tank and anyone who's nearby. The last thing that we have here in the middle is the High Channeler Raivati. This is basically a mini-boss version of the Tempest Channeler, so when you get to the middle of the room, definitely make sure you're taking care of this guy. He'll do the same abilities that the Tempest Channeler does, but he'll also summon more of the Primal Thunderclouds. These Primal Thunderclouds, you'll see that they were around the area, but they also spawn from him. Basically, these cast Crackling Detonation. If they go off, they'll charge to a person, and then just do a little AoE to them and anyone near them. Once this trash is taken care of, you'll have the area clear, and then you'll be ready for the final boss. The last boss encounter is Kyrakka the Dragon and Erkhart. Erkhart has 3 abilities. At the start of the fight, and then every 25 to 30 seconds, he'll cast Winds of Change. This does low damage and pushes everyone in a direction for 4 seconds. He'll also cast Zephyr. This is a non-interruptible cast that does medium nature damage to all players. His last ability is Storm Slam. This is a massive tank hit that does physical and nature damage to the tank. This also applies a stacking magic debuff that increases the damage the tank takes from this ability. Tanks, just make sure that you use a mitigation for this ability, and healers, please make sure to dispel the magic debuff so tanks don't take extra damage on repeated casts. At the same time that Erkhart is out, you'll also be dealing with the dragon Kyrakka. All of the dragon's abilities apply 2 stacks of the Inner Inferno debuff. This causes players to explode for medium fire damage every second to anyone within 5 yards, and to also drop flame pools that last for 35 seconds. When you have this debuff, make sure to move away from others and try to minimize the area where you drop the puddles. The first ability he casts is Roaring Fire Breath. He'll swoop down and breathe fire in a line in front of him for 6 seconds. This has a tendency to happen directly after Erkhart casts Winds of Change, so make sure that you don't get blown into it. The other ability he has is Flame Spit. This targets one random player, which does medium damage and applies this debuff. While Erkhart is still alive, this ability will only target one person at a time. However, once Erkhart dies, he instead will hit all players with this ability at the same time, so healers, be ready for that. And that's it for Ruby Life Pools on Heroic difficulty. If you enjoyed this guide, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really does help the channel out, and you can also ring that bell to get notified every time that I post new videos for Brewmaster and the Dragonflight Alpha. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to put them in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. See ya!